Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jayo Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Oh boy. Page 597. 597. You want to sit here? Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you sit here? You need that. You need that seat. Yeah. Go ahead. There was Mukunda Maika. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 23rd day of June 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 15 entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person. Text number 6 on page 597. Natad bhasayate suryo Nashashanko napavakaha Yadghatvananavartante Tadhama padamang mama Natad bhasayate suryo Nashashanko napavakaha Yadghatvananavartante Tadhama padamang mama Natad bhasayate suryo Nashashanko napavakaha Yadghatvananavartante Tadhama padamang mama Natad bhasayate suryo Nashashanko napavakaha Yadgata nanibhartante tadhama padamang mama. Go ahead, Prabhu. Natadbhasayate suryo nasashanko napavakaha yadgatva nivartante tadhama padamang mama. Not tat, that, bhasayate, illuminates, surya, the sun, nor shashankaha, the moon, nor pavakaha, fire, electricity. Yat, where, gatva, going, never, nivartante, they come back. Tad dhamma, that abode, padamam, supreme, mama, my. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, that supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Purport. The spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity, because all the planets are self-luminous. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous, but all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets, called Vaikunthas, constitutes the shining sky known as the Brahma Jyoti. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahatattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Goloka Vrindavan. As long as a living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky by cutting through the false, perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. One has to associate himself with devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The words paramam mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is paramam, full of 6 opulences. The Katha Upanishad 2.2.15 also confirms that the spiritual world that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, or stars. Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam. For the whole spiritual planet is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. Om Gyan Timarandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada Open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. It's funny because as I was reading that, I was thinking, I just read this. Didn't we just read this? And I did read this because on Sunday night I gave the talk in the lounge and it was on Vaikuntha. And I read all these verses up through 6. So this is the culmination of the processes that were described in the first 5 verses here, where he describes this reverse banyan tree. And it's a metaphor for the entangling material world, which has unlimited attractions and variegatedness, varieties of sense gratification. You can stay entangled with this world for many, many lifetimes of Brahma. But the key Krishna gives in the 3rd verse is to cut off the root of the tree. The root of the tree it describes as desire, and our desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. At the end of the 7th chapter, near the end of the 7th chapter, there's a verse which Srila Prabhupada several times refers to in his talks as describing how we came to the material world, which is a perennial question. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. The word sarge means a creation, and yanti means to go. So Prabhupada took this verse as Krishna's description of how he got here. So let's see. Itcha dvesha. Itcha means desire. Dvesha means repulsion, the opposite of what you want, abhorrence. So what do we desire? We're in the spiritual world. We desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. And what do we hate? We hate to serve Krishna. So itcha dvesha samutena, arising from this duality of desiring to enjoy separately and not wanting to serve, arises the dvandva moha, the delusion of duality, of good and bad, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, that comes because we come into this relative world, material world. And that also is in the instrumental, meaning that something happens from that. Itcha dvesha samutena, dvandva mohena. So from that delusion of duality, O Bharata, sarva bhutani sammoham, all living beings who are now in this material world are bewildered. And sarge yanti paranta, in this way they've come into this material world. So Prabhupada describes this as, points to this verse as description of how we got here. So by that coming into this world, we develop different kinds of attachments, and they just branch out into unlimited varieties, and that is described here as this tree. So if it's just a variety of different kinds of attachments, then clearly the way to cut it off is to become detached, and that's called the asanga shastrena, the weapon of detachment. Dridhena chitva, one has to firmly cut it off. Now that sword that we're cutting is described in the 2nd chapter, 1st canto. It's called anudyasina. Anudhya means dhya is there as in dhyana, is remembrance, and asina is another word for weapon. Yadanudyasina. Yad refers to Krishna. Yadanudyasina yukta karma granti nabandhan chindandi. So karma bandhi nabandhanam are the reactions to our material activities, good and bad. So that those reactions has to be destroyed by remembrance of Krishna. By remembrance of Krishna, we become detached from material energy. We become attached to Krishna, which will take us back to Godhead, ultimately, and is refined to the point of pure love. And we destroy all our karmic reactions, good and bad, that are keeping us here. So the whole thing keys on the development of Krishna consciousness, which is what this movement is all about. We don't have to develop this detachment separately. It happens organically or automatically by developing attraction to Krishna. So then, having cut off that, then we have to immediately search out that place from where everything has originated. Tatak padam, tat padimargitavyam. That padam, that place, is described in the text 6. That's the spiritual world. Yasmin gata, the place where when you go, you don't come back. That's only the spiritual world. Every other place is a place of return. This is the verse. Now when we cultivate our verses, we're going to start learning all these verses. What's that verse where Krishna says, from the top to the bottom, these are places of return, where you come back again and again. You may not know, but you should know by now. Yes. Keep going. Brahma bhuvana loke, punar avartano jana. Punar avartana means a place of again and again returning. But mamupeti kunteya punar janmana vijite. But attaining my abode, one doesn't come back again. This is eighth chapter. I don't know the exact text. I think it's around 15, something like that. Yeah, there's some really good verses there. That's, what is this place? Mamupeti dukkhalayam shashvatam. That one line. I may not be right about the reference, but he's describing the spiritual world. 16. Brahma. This one, because we're going to get into these shlokas. So this word just like in English there's a word So in Sanskrit there's the word which means up to, including. Brahma Bhuvanala, even up to Brahmaloka, the highest planet, and the age. This is something you got to remember, how long Brahma lives. You have any rough idea? No, way bigger. No, that's one day. So just multiply it in your head. 8,600,000,000 times 30 times 12 times 100 comes out to 311 trillion and 40 billion. That's the rounding error. So even Brahma, who lives so long, still dies and comes back up. So not always. The Brahma that who's the head of our sampradaya is going back to Godhead. He spoke the Brahma Samhita. So this word just a little editing note. It's interesting because in the third verse of the Bhagavatam, Nagamakalpatado Galitam Palam. You're familiar with it, but you may not know by heart. No? This is the verse where it says this Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the desire tree of all of the Vedas, Nagamakalpatado Galitam Palam Shukamakadamita. It emanated from the mouth of Shuka. And therefore it's sweeter, because he's like a parrot. A parrot apparently, if he bites into the fruit, it's sweeter. Amita Dravida Samyutam, and it's the immortal, word by word meaning semi-soft and easily swallowable. The Bhagavatam. That's what Juta means to flow. But the Bhagavatam rasam alayam. Now, Pibata is an imperative. It means drink it. He's encouraging the wise souls of this world. Drink this Bhagavatam. Not once, but repeatedly. Pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam. Muhoraho, again and again, which is why Prabhupada set up these morning class for the Bhagavatam. Rasika, become a rasika. It's a play on words. Rasa is juice. So you're drinking the Bhagavatam juice, you become a rasika, you taste rasa, you taste mellow, So, but the word I was always puzzled about was the word alayam. About the Bhagavatam rasam alayam. Now alayam, if you know that mamupeja punarjanma, dukkha alayam. Alayam is simply abode. It can be abode of misery, dukkha alayam, or abode of nectar, whatever. So how does this work? Alayam, and up to the point of liberation, it doesn't seem to make sense. And then I realized that it's layam. You see, the word is laya. Laya means destruction, and it can also mean liberation. So drink it up to the point of liberation and beyond. That's implied. In other words, it's not meant to just bring you to liberation. It's meant to bring you back to Godhead and immerse you in an ocean of nectar of love of Godhead, which includes liberation as a byproduct. That's the whole idea. So, this verse. So now you've searched out that place, the spiritual world. Now you've cut off this attachment, and you've searched out the spiritual world, and tameva chajam purusham papadye yatak pavite pasade. And you find the person, the supreme personality of Godhead, purusham, and surrender. from whom everything has emanated since time immemorial. And the next verse, which I won't go into in detail, is the surrendering process. It's a very important verse, text 5, Nirmana Moha. Notice he begins, if we recall, two chapters ago, I don't think you were here, but there, chapter 13, there's a whole list of elements of knowledge. This is one of Arjun's questions. And the very first one, amanina, amanitvam, adambitvam, to be free of pride. Because it's the pride and the false pride, which prevents us from surrendering. Well, I surrender. I can figure it out. That was Arjun's mood in the first chapter. He's kind of personifying that. He's taking the role. And then he surrenders in the second chapter. And everything begins from there. So it goes on, and then Gacchantya mudha padamavya. He goes to that padam, the person who is amudha, who is not befooled, and then he describes it in this present verse. So this is it's not a very detailed description, but Prabhupada still says one should be captivated by this information. But the information is more, not only what Krishna gives in the verse, but what Prabhupada gives in the purport. Every living spiritual kingdom becomes associate of the Lord, there he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, full knowledge. That's not mentioned in the verse. So that life in the spiritual world, how are we going to find out about it? This is where we need to consult the scripture, like the Bhagavatam especially, and the souls who are living it. The writings of the Goswamis, they've expanded on the Bhagavatam. You read the Tattva Sandarbha, and the whole first Sandarbha is establishing Bhagavatam as the spotless authority, because you need to have that. You need to have full faith and confidence, because you hear things that are just out of this world, that don't compute with your ordinary understanding. Krishna even mentions that about the soul. Ashtarya bhat pashyati kashyati. People, they're amazed to hear about the soul. What is it? I mean, for us, we're fortunate if you read Bhagavad Gita, that's step number 1. Okay, I'm spirit, not body. I'm eternal, not temporary. That's the foundation of everything else. But the details of the spiritual world and the activities and the creation, it's not something we can figure out or find out by our own investigation. It's not amenable to the ascending process, the scientific process of observing with our eyes and our instruments, coming to a tentative conclusion, hypothesis, testing it out. No, you'll never get it that way. That's why Krishna's name is Adhokshaja. You've heard the reason behind that? No, there's 3 words there that combine. Adha, Aksha, and Ja. So Ja is always like short for Janma, means birth or generation. And Aksha is eyes and other senses. So what is born of the eyes and other senses? Material knowledge. This is the ascending process. And Hada means down. It means he who pushes down or defeats every attempt to understand him by the ascending process. In other words, he's transcendental. That's the very definition of transcendental. Beyond the reach of our material mind and senses. So how can we know anything beyond the reach of our material mind and senses? Only by hearing from the authority. That's why, I don't know if I ran through the 10 root of the philosophy. I don't think you were here. Dashamula, does that ring a bell? Yeah. But the first one is, how do we know this? What's the sort? The Amnaya word. Amnaya means revealed scripture and the chain of the cyclic succession of souls who know it and live it and teach it, the acharyas. That's Amnaya. So all the information that follows that, the 9 points, are beyond our ability to know, by our investigation. So we get so much information, a little bit of information here about the spiritual world from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But this expanded tremendously in the Bhagavatam. And in the writings of the Goswamis, there's so much even more detail. It's understood that in their state of, constant trance and love of Godhead, that so many things are being revealed to them. The details of, Krishna's pastimes and what's going on in the spiritual world. And when we're open to hearing that, from a proper source, and we can actually get this information and become attracted even more. There's these books called a Champu form. There's a Gopal Champu, Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Have you heard of those? You have. So Gopal Champu is said to be a very formidable literature. The beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Madhya Lila. There's a list of many of the Gopaswami's books, and he says, "Oh, this is very formidable." And what that means is it's long, and it's very detailed, and it's just like a novel. In a novel where you get all these little details, and you can be there, So this is Jiva Goswami has expanded so much on the pastimes. And, when you really, it's not that it's so advanced in the sense of, it's so intimate associated with Radha and Krishna. That's not what's going on there. There's some of that. But just like every pastime that we know. Like I'll give you an example, the stealing of the butter and and then he's chasing the mother. And then we're tying him up and pulling down the 2 Yamalarjan trees. So there's a dimension in that just was so fascinating to me. So what happened? He pulls down these 2 Yamalarjan trees, and then the 2 demigods come out, Manigriva and Nalakuva. They've been quite purified after 36,000 years, and they could remember. And so they offer their prayers and they take off. So then what happens? There's this huge cracking sound, and so all the cowherd men come running, and all the little boys are around Krishna. I think he's just a little boy, And so miraculously, they're so relieved Krishna wasn't hurt, and none of these boys were hurt. This is praise be to the gods, And so, but then Nanda Maharaj says, who did this? Who did this? Put you in danger, tied you up like this, and then these trees came, falling down. They couldn't believe that he pulled them down. He's just a little boy. So Krishna says, mother did. She tied me. So Nanda Maharaj is very upset with Mother Yashoda, and so they take them back, to the palace, the place where they live, and she's not coming out. She's hiding in the house somewhere. She's so ashamed, she endangered Krishna. She's feeling guilty, and so Krishna, he's always conspiring or figuring out how he can draw out different emotions from everybody in relation to himself. So he picks up on his father's mood, who's upset with Mother Yashoda, and So he says, "I'm not going to go see her anymore." So what's going to happen? What breast milk are you going to drink? I'm not going to drink any breast milk anymore. I'm going to drink only the cow's milk. Well, who are you going to play with? I'm going to play with you, Father. And he hangs on to his father. So Nanda Maharaj is saying, what have I done? What have I done? Now, if he's against his mother, So he figures out, he says, okay, so he picks up a stick. Shall I go beat her? I think I should go beat her. Chris says, no. So then he runs to his mother and jumps on her lap. I mean, all those details you don't find. This is expanded, But it all makes perfect sense, rasically. It could happen. It happened like that. It makes perfect sense. So that's what this Gopal Champu is in all the pastimes. That Jiva Goswami. And of course, obviously, I have a copy. Copy means digital. So when you get all these details about the spiritual world, which you get a lot of course, in the 10th canto, and the 3rd canto, there's a description of the kingdom of God also, which is very fascinating in Vaikuntha. So one should be captivated by this information. The whole idea is that what's the payoff, for all of this austerity? I mean, admittedly, we're not doing extreme austerities, but for us, for Kali Yuga, just getting up early and taking a shower is a big mistake. It's a big of a cold shower. Oh my God, But all this chanting and hearing and giving up this, giving up that—that's what serious, brahmacharya life is about. The payoff is that you're kind of paving the way to allow this attraction to really take hold, because you don't have so many involvements outside. You're not cultivating this relation, that relation, so many things on your mind. You can actually have the freedom to meditate on this, get absorbed in the holy name, and in so many services, which purify all the senses in the heart. And the payoff for that, is that you can more easily develop attraction for Krishna in all his manifestations. And once that attraction starts to grow, then all of these material things just fall by the wayside. They just evaporate. They become not even in consideration, which is a great boon, because it's those attractions, those ropes and knots that keep you coming back again and again. So it's a process, and this is part of it is reading about this spiritual world here. So, seeing, this is just a hint. One word on the word shashanko. Did I explain what that means one time? How is the moon shashanka? Okay. From now, you remember from now. I know you remember, Alex. A rabbit is called a shashi. And we look up in the moon, you can see certain things, and they see a rabbit. I remember once I learned there's a deer up there or something, So shashanka means that which has the marks of a rabbit. Anka means, shashanka is it? It's also called shashi, yes, shashi suryayo. That we find that rasoham, rasoham, sarvabhuti, rasoham. Oh, I can't stand it. Chapter 7. See, that's in that verse. 7, where he's saying, after Bhumarapa Olanovayu Kangmano Buddha Devacha Ankari Yambini. 7. Seven, 8. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. Prabhasmi shashi suryayo. Do you see it? Page 313. Which one? 10:21. Aham shashi. Yeah. There's several places it appears. So, it's good to know these things. All right, so let's go on. All right, so we want to be captivated by this information. I mean, that's it. That's the whole point. You get captivated by Krishna. And the desire to transcend himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. So Prabhupada is giving us a direct instruction there about cultivating our desires. All right, let's go back to the 15th chapter. Now he kind of shifts gears, and he's going to explain who we really are, and a nice description of how transmigration. Text number 7. Mamai vangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manakshashtan indriyani pakatistani karshati. By the way, these 6 and 7 are on our list. They're definitely in the Uttama Shloka list. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. Purport: in this verse, the identity of the living being is clearly given. The living entity is the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord eternally. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmented. It is clearly said, Sanatana. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva, and the secondary expansions are called the living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion, and the living entities are the separated expansions, Binangsha, this is called. By his personal expansion, he is manifested in various forms like Lord Ram, Nrsingadev, Vishnumurti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. These separated expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors. The word binna means separated, binangsha. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual identities of the Godhead, are always present. Similarly, the separated expansions of living entities have their identities. As fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the living entities also have fragmental portions of his qualities, of which independence is one. Every living entity, as an individual soul, has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal, as the Supreme Lord is. In his liberated state, he is freed from this material condition, and he is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditioned life, he is dominated by the material modes of nature, and he forgets the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. The living entities, not only human beings and cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of this material world, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu, are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word karshati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence. When the mind is in the mode of goodness, his activities are good. When the mind is in the mode of passion, his activities are troublesome. And when the mind is in the mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower species of life. It is clear, however, in this verse, that the conditioned soul is covered by the material body with the mind and the senses. And when he is liberated, this material covering perishes, but his spiritual body manifests itself in its individual capacity. The following information is there in the Madhyandinayana Shruti. Sava esha brahmanishta idam shariram matyam atisridya brahma visampadya brahmana pashyati brahmana shrinoti brahmana vedam sarvam anubhavati. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up his material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body, and in his spiritual body he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He can hear and speak to him face to face, and he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is. From the Smriti also it is understood, Vasanti yatra purusha sarve vaikunta murtayaha. In the spiritual planets, everyone lives in bodies featured like the Supreme Personality of Godheads. As far as bodily construction is concerned, there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansions of Vishnu Murti. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word mamai vangshaha, fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. We have already understood in the second chapter that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. This fragment is not materially conceived. It is not like matter, which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here, because the Sanskrit word sanatan, eternal, is used. The fragmental portion is eternal. It is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter that in each and every individual body the fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is present. Dehi nosmin yata dehe. That fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky, in a spiritual planet, and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, just as the parts and parcels of gold are also gold. So, very important verse and purport for understanding our harekrishna constitutional position, ontological position. I think you studied some philosophy. Okay. I think it has to do with existence, we'll look that up. I think that's a word we can use. But it's so revolutionary. I mean, this doesn't come naturally, this understanding. There's all kinds of philosophies about what we are and who we are, but they're all based on variations of the body and the mind and things like that. But the body and the mind that we have are given to us by the material energy. They're not our true body and mind. Body and mind means there's a spiritual body, there's a spiritual mind, a spiritual intelligence. But these are just reflections of that. This whole reflection idea is there. And so, in our present condition, we completely forget that identity. Just as Prabhupada always gives this analogy, when you dream at night, you can be a different person, right? A different age. You can concoct things from the daytime or 20 years ago.
It won't be 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. But the point is that we have a different identity. We have a different identity, and we forget it completely about this identity, right? And then you wake up and, oh, that was strange. What was that all about? And then you forget about that, and you go on with your day life. But Prabhupada talks about this, the night dream, and then there's the daydream. This is also a dream-like existence. It's not our real life. We've kind of, Prabhupada said, given over the power of eternity to the senses, to the mind, to this intelligence. And we're energizing those as long as we're within this construction. As soon as we leave, the whole thing collapses. But we take that subtle body with us. That's described in the next few verses. Very fascinating. The process of transmigrating. The whole thing keys on the mind. The mind is keeps us bound here with all of its attachments, and the mind can take us out of here when we control it and we fill it with thoughts of Krishna and aspirations to serve Krishna. And that depends on the use of our God-given intelligence. This is why the human life is so rare and so important. Because only in this life, this form of life, does the living entity have the facility to understand this philosophy like this, and therefore not simply be a slave to the impulses of the mind and senses. The lower body, the lower forms of life, the cats and dogs, what to speak of the insects and the plants, they also have their mind, sometimes very rudimentary. But there's no question of higher intelligence. It's all simply working out their age, in a specific body, then going on to the next one. And as they come up, this is a process of evolution. You come up through the different species until you come to the human form. Why did you leave the human form? Some grievous sin, and vikarma, and you lost the human form of life. That's described in the third canto. And then you come up, again human form, another chance. And in this chance, we take advantage of it. That means taking advantage of the Shastra, the association, this knowledge. Otherwise, you remain polished animal life. Dharma nahina pashabhi samana. Without real dharma. And of course, this is a world of illusion, means fake things. It looks like love. I love you forever. You're my soulmate. But that's just illusion. It's based on temporary bodily association. And chances are it'll end way before death. But at least at death, it ends completely. You forget all about it. And you're put into another situation, maybe subhuman. Now what does it all mean? Nothing. The whole thing was a huge illusion, presented by Maya to keep you bound here. This is her thankless task. But as soon as you surrender, even partially, to Krishna, you open up the channel where you're receiving this knowledge and trying to follow it. You still have so many tendencies, then she, proportionately, she lessens her grip. That's, again, the 7th chapter. Daiviyesha gunamayi, mamaya dorachaya, mameve papadinte mayame tangtarantide. She is, after all, a servant of Krishna. And so she will let you go. She will loosen her grip if you're genuinely surrendering to Krishna. So it's the choice is ours. Prabhupada made the point in his previous purport about the minute independence. Or is it this long purport we read? That we have Krishna's qualities in minute degree. He is supremely independent. This is what it means to be the Parameshwar, the supreme controller. He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, in any way. We sometimes think we can do whatever we want, but there's always there's a reaction. We can't. We're limited by the body. We're limited by our circumstances. There's so many limitations. So that's the dilemma. We have to get over that illusion, which in its extreme state is in chapter 16, which we'll read about, the demoniac state. All of these demons Krishna kills, each one of them is completely befooled and is confident that they can conquer this delicate little boy. Are you kidding me? And each one of them is meets Krishna as death. Mrityu sabhadaschara. So we don't want to meet Krishna as death. We want to meet Krishna as Krishna, the delightful, adolescent boy who's our friend and who is emanating, unlimited love and compassion for us. He's given us so many chances, and now we should take it and really run with it. All right, let's go on. There's no discussion. I love this portion of the Bhagavad Gita. Text 8. Shadiram yadavapnoti yat chapyut kramatishvaraha vihidvaitani sangyati vayu gandhani vashiyat. So he's continuing to describe the living entity, his constitutional position, and his transmigration. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Purport. Here the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world, and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after the annihilation of this body, everything is finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karshati, or struggle for existence. So this is a very nice analogy. The living entity material carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as air carries aromas. So, we're the living entity, and at a certain time, a certain point, the body becomes dysfunctional for whatever reason, and we have to leave. But we take with us this subtle body. And as we've created it, that subtle body is like a template, if you will. And our next body is already ready, because there's control. There's this super soul is there, and the old demigod. So it's already ready, and we go into it according to how we've created our consciousness. And Vayu Gundani Vashiyat, if it's we've created a nasty consciousness, it's like a bad smell, going over a garbage heap. But if it's mode of goodness or something, we can go to a higher planet, depending on there's unlimited varieties of bodies. But the whole thing keys on the consciousness that we've created, and we're doing that every waking moment of our life. What we've chosen now. The thing is, we develop obviously tendencies. In many cases, this is described in the third canto again. You're helpless. It describes this amazing scene of the living entity in the womb, waking up after, Prabhupada says, after 6 months, I think it is, or 7. He's going by lunar calendar, so it's 10 months in the womb. But after 7 months, say, you wake up, you can't do much, you're in there praying, but you're awake. You can't get out, And so, you say, oh, what have I done? Basically, you say, what have I done? I should have gone to Mangalarti. I'm sorry. I promise I'll go. But then you come out, and the way it's described, because this is not a birth in a devotee family he's describing there. So it seems that, I don't know, what the qualification is. Prabhupada said the saintly soul. But whatever it is not saintly enough to take birth in a devotee family. So you come out and you're helpless. The trauma of birth makes you forget all that. And so now you're just a baby, can't talk, can hardly see. So you're completely at the mercy of your parents, and your siblings. And you get trained up in your conditioned life again. Unless you have enough assets in devotional service to be born in a devotee family, which is a great asset. And they'll come and take you and see the deity even as a little child, And that's a great good fortune. But the whole idea is that we have free will. We are a certain amount of free will. we can develop a certain consciousness. But as you go in a certain direction, you tend to go in that direction. If you're cultivating the mode of ignorance, you get into bad company. Sangha is everything. You get into drugs and this and that. So you can do harm, such harm that you can't sit still. You can't sit here and listen to you're aggravated. You've damaged yourself. That happens. Mode of ignorance. We know it's rampant out there. So the idea is how fortunate we are. We're able to read the book. We're able to do bhakti. And everything that we do, it's affecting our consciousness. Prabhupada would say, someone just comes into the responsibility of pujaris to dress so nicely. So if someone sees the deity, they will say, oh, how wonderful they look. That in itself is a big step forward, Prabhupada says, just to appreciate. Out of millions of people rushing around, seeing this, doing this, those fortunate souls who come to see the deity, take a little prasadam, very fortunate they take a book, The whole idea is to attract the consciousness of the living entity so that they'll investigate more and get into the association. And then, of course, the crown jewel in the beginning, if they really get interested, is to start chanting. As soon as they start chanting the Maha Mantra, they take a huge step forward, because every time they chant, what is that? It describes how one name of Ram is like chanting 1,000 names of Vishnu, and one name of Krishna is like chanting 3 names of Ram. So, just harekrishna, harekrishna, Gita, Gita, Hare, just like one Maha Mantra, you made tremendous advancement. So the idea is that, as Prabhupada said, I remember this from like the second day I was in the temple, if you take 1 step toward Krishna, he takes 10 steps toward you. I'm sure you heard that. In other words, he's a lot more eager to get us back than we're eager to go back to guide it. Just like a father whose son goes off to San Francisco, and is on the street and he's wondering, when will he call, when will he text, Well, the son has forgotten all about that. He's thinking he's having a ball, So that's us. We're the prodigal son. We're the sons wandering around in this material world, forgetting our loving father. And so he comes personally to come retrieve us, and speaks the Bhagavad Gita, kills all these demons, and So we should take advantage of this and accept the invitation. All right, so we'll begin tomorrow, resume tomorrow. This is text number 9. And this is a fascinating word. I have a surprise for you tomorrow. Remind me, tell you. There's an insight in this verse that is not so obvious. But we have time for 1 or 2 nectar verses. I just remembered this one. Listen to the M's. Every word begins with M in this verse. Matadesha madhuri mayamada bamudadi mattalika mugdha mama manana mohana modama dikimanaso maha moham. Maha moham. Great illusion. O Master of Mathura, Mathura Isha. O Master of Mathura, lovely Lord of Goddess Shri, that's the Goddess of Fortune. O Master of Mathura, lovely Lord of Goddess Shri, who play such maddening melodies upon your murali. O Cupid's charmer, please redeem a life till now misspent by joyfully destroying my extreme bewilderment. Isn't that a nice prayer? You can offer that to Girdhar. Always Queen Kunti's is always good. Twai me anannibhishya mati madhupate sakrit ratamun bahatara dha gange bhavagumadhanvati. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind, as Ganges torrent flows into the sea. Let all my love flow constantly to thee. And then another one like that for Radha and Krishna. I try to chant this every morning in the greeting. Pashupala varinya nandana vadame tang muharate he yuvam bhavatu bhanayo bhave bhave bhavatore vapadham bhujeshume. O Radha Krishna, children of the best of cowherd men, this single boon I beg from you again and yet again. In all the countless births my endless sins will make me meet. Then all my love flow toward your lustrous lotus feet. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Okay, let's prepare for Artika. All glories to Prabhupada.